morning, but I'm really thrilled that we're getting to hear from the voices that we are. And the first person that we're gonna hear from this morning is Dylan Forbes, who, yes, sounds like most of you remember Dylan and the last time that we talked. It was kind of like a real spur of the moment thing. We decided that we were gonna try to raise some funds to send with Dylan to Lebanon, and you guys did great. Like, people really came through, and and then it was able to also tie in with another outreach we had done back in the fall with the family of the Barber family, with Jay, who was in that ended up being paralyzed. And anyway, I'll let her tell you what the connection was there, but so glad that she just got back, Wednesday? Tuesday. So I'm so glad that she made it back in time. And we're grateful you're safe, and can't wait to hear what you have to share.
Thank you. Hi, everybody. It's been a while since I talked to most of you. It's really good to see your faces. I'm probably going to read from this for the most part. But I'm just here mainly to express thanks and gratitude to you all for your really generous donation. It was like a month and a half ago. It really was like just a week, not even a week-long campaign. It was a few days. And we were able to raise almost $3,000 US, which is massive. And I just want to say all of that went straight to organizations in Lebanon. I bought my own ticket. It wasn't like yeah. Just to be clear. So when I was there, I was able to donate that almost $3,000 in cash to a number of organizations there. They're doing work on a community level to support the cities of Beirut and Tripoli, particularly children's education, food security, and immediate relief, free of charge health clinics, and other material and political support to vulnerable communities such as migrant workers who are there on essentially like a almost slavery visa. And refugees who are not permitted to work but need a way to support their families. I'm really happy to provide specifics about the names of these organizations and the amounts, and more details about what they do. We can do that on the website or on Facebook or something, or even after the service if you want to come find me. But I'll just talk now about some of my favorite stories there, I guess. So my personal favorite of the organizations that that you helped me donate to is it's called Nation Station, and that's because it started after the Beirut port explosion, which was in 2020. Maybe some of you remember it. It was a really devastating blast that destroyed the entire city and, of course, re-traumatized a population who had been living through several wars in their lifetime. And this group of individuals met at an abandoned gas station and decided that would be their hub for for coordinating efforts to get people to hospitals, to rebuild people's homes, to, this person needs their toilet repaired because it was destroyed in the explosion, and this person we just gave food aid to is actually a plumber, so let's connect them. And it's a really wonderful example of mutual aid, and it's and they have grown and developed from there. They have a community garden, they do food relief, they do, so when I was donating there's a free medical clinic, and there was a man. He was like an elderly father with his son who was severely disabled and in a wheelchair, and he said that was the only place where he could get medical care. These organizations like this one and others, I chose them because although having large-scale organizations like World Vision with resources and coordination mechanisms to build a well-oiled machine, that's really important. But this cash was meant to support local organizations who don't turn away any in need. Anyone can come on a day-to-day basis and they can uniquely and flexibly respond. Also, these organizations have real trouble accessing cash and accessing funds to support themselves. There's currently a severe banking crisis and hyperinflation and policies that prevent local organizations without a US or European status from accessing any US dollars. And dollars are really important there because the value of the local currency has dropped massively since for the past 3 years. So, to give you a picture, the 3,000 that we sent, let's say around 3,000, It used to be, in 2019, worth 4.5 million lira, and now it's worth 120 million lira. So just hugely important for them to have access to funding in hand. So thank you all. More personally, I return to Lebanon on a regular basis, probably too often, because it's a place I've really connected with on a deep spiritual level. During this visit there, I was able to witness the engagement of two of my dearest friends. One of them is a Lebanese pastor, and the other is a Canadian Baptist camp director. And they have sustained the most impressive long-distance relationship I've ever seen, except for my parents. I stayed with friends of mine while there who are basically running an informal hostel. Any friend of friend, any artist they know who is in need of a place to stay, who's in a tough situation, was welcome. And we had kind of a rotating group of people staying in and out with a place to crash, no questions asked. I was able to reconnect with my pastor friends who are doing very difficult work throughout Syria and Lebanon, and with some populations that are either aging out or who are just have a lack of hope. And they're doing a lot of intentional work with youth to maintain like a youth involvement in the church, and not just youth involvement but youth leadership. So yeah, and I also specifically from my parents was able to donate some to them as well, to their initiatives, so that was really special. I spent time at the local park where friends of mine had just seen an empty abandoned parking lot and decided to just go rogue and turn it into a park, and now it looks amazing. It looks so beautiful, and so it's one of the lone green spaces in Beirut, and it's really special. And I guess on a darker side, there are always really heavy things every time I return. One of my friends was detained by the General Security Forces for half a day only, but still, just for being Palestinian. People were desperate enough that another friend had a squatter basically, and a stalker who wouldn't leave him alone. This person was also very vulnerable and was suffering from addiction, but my friend is Syrian and gay, and so if he had gone to law enforcement services, like, it just would have been a really bad situation for everyone, and he really struggled with how to protect himself and not put this other person in undue danger while also getting his home back. So things like that happen all the time, and these types of stories exist, of course, in the US. They exist everywhere. These are just a few of the ones on my heart these days. But we're at the thankful service and thinking of gratefulness and the practice also of waiting that we see in the upcoming Advent season. These people are so patient. They just ask and wait and ask and wait and ask and wait, and they try any loophole, any possible workaround, only to be shut down 99 times out of 100. And it's heartbreaking for each individual in their own way, in their own story, whether it's like waiting for a diploma for a degree they earned 2 years ago, or for a visa to finally bittersweetly allow them to leave their beloved country, or for a salary going unpaid for month after month due to the crisis, and continuing to work in an NGO they care about while being unpaid for, God knows how long it's going to last. Yet they're all really all the more and like inconceivably thankful in this waiting for the community of support they have around them and for God's love, and I'm just so privileged to be a part of that, a small part of that. And the last thing I'll say is, like, of course, here in the US as well, Syrians, Palestinians, Lebanese people, migrants, many other groups are facing unbearable oppressive weights and often just flat out no's due to structures that are oppressing them. And I believe that God blesses and favors these people, actually, the waiters, the most vulnerable and oppressed, and calls us to not only learn from them, but also to actively engage with them, to love them, to pray with them, and to fight for them. So thank you again, everybody, profusely for your continued support. It means so much to me personally, but it also, I think, is on God's heart. So I thank you for your time. I think I just ran out the clock.
Thank you so much for that, Dylan. I'm going to invite the worship team back up, as well as some of the kids who have a special treat for us this morning. And then after that, Marissa's going to share, and then Paige will share, and then I'll come back up. So
there is a card that I picked up recently, and I loved it. I cracked up so much. It said, "If you do one more nice thing for me, me, I may have to get a thank you tattoo on my face. And I just love that. I thought that is so perfect. And that is so much how I feel about Jesus. If I was going to get a tattoo, which I'm needles and stuff like that, forget. But it would be like a thank you tattoo. And there's a quote from this really great book called Perfectly Suited by J.D. Peabody. And it says, His grace doesn't just cover the cost of our fallen state. Praise God. It gives us the means to leave behind our age-old way of life. He calls us to step out from that which enslaves us and into genuine freedom. Amen. You know? And that is what I'm testifying today, is my journey of freedom. And it's a really short journey on paper, and I won't tell you the whole journey today. But there's 3 things that have defined this journey for me. And the first was my leaving journey. And 5 years ago, I left to get some additional schooling. And it happened to be that God led me to Portland. I did not expect that at all. And there I was, which was great. I had a really great experience there. But my leaving journey was to go to through graduate school for counseling. And that is a very scrapey journey. It like just shreds at your soul, which is supposed to. Because if you're going to be sitting with other people and be able to hold some of their stuff, you have to really look at your own stuff. And so one of the pieces of that was that I realized how anxious and afraid that I'd lived for a very long time. And I called it my river of anxiety. And I didn't know it was a river, honestly. I thought I was doing pretty good. And then I really had to face it. And so there was a lot of fear and anxiety, and God redeemed that. He's in the process still. But it went from a river to a creek. And that is good. That is genuine freedom. And in that place, he became my comfort. He became a place of comfort. While I know he was allowing the journey of school and all the tough stuff to scrape at me, he was right alongside me, comforting me in that place and healing me. So it wasn't just, I identify it now. It was like, no, like he's gonna fix and heal that. So I'm so thankful for that. So that was the first piece. My leaving journey was of his comfort. The second is my ongoing journey. And that has been, as I've been walking with my kiddo Greta in a different gendered place for almost 4 years now. I had a theology, and it collided with reality. And that reality was called love. And and it should. That should have been the most important place. I really didn't understand how deep God's love for me. I could say it. I could, like quote verses. There was something in embracing my kids' journey that was the journey that felt uncomfortable, that I really found out how deep God's love was and how shallow mine was. How very little I actually had. That's what scared me. It really terrified me. I thought, how am I going to get all this love that I'm going to need? Well, he had it. He has it. It's there. It's right there for us. And I have been camping on 1 John 4 for just weeks. I just can't get out of there. And the place that it's really special to me, it says, God is love, and when we take up permanent residence in a life of love, then we live in God, and God lives in us. And this way, love has the run of the house and becomes home and mature in us. And then it says, this is a part that I feel like really hit me, was, there is no room in love for fear. They can't coexist. If it's fear, then it's something else. It's not love. There's something different about it. And I had to realize that Jesus' love was that pure place that I could go. There is no room in love for fear. Well-formed love banishes fear. I loved that. It's like, yeah, that's the place I want to be. I want to be in that place where love is banishing fear. So Jesus became a really special depth of love for me in this season, and he continues to expand those borders of what I think is love. I'm like, every day there's something that stretches it a little more. I'm like, really, Lord? I thought I was doing okay, but no, there's more love. You've got to expand. So it's an ongoing journey. And the last part has been my return journey to Washington. And I have experienced God as the most abundant provider you can even imagine. And some of you are a little more intimate with that story right now, but I knew that I was realizing I provide for myself for very long since I was little. There's places that I've had to provide for myself. And so I had this thinking that, well, that's what I do. I just make things happen. I provide, I do things, I take the next step, right? We just do this for ourselves. And this has been a journey back that has been nothing about me handling anything except listening. And in the beginning of the summer, I've been wanting to come back since 2020, but there were some things that happened in between there. And so I was like, Lord, when am I coming back? I want to get back home. Portland was never home for me. It was my place of retreat in a sense. And I was looking for housing. Nope, nothing's coming forward. And I thought, can I go without this permanence? The things that people would say you have to have in place when you move. And I kept getting this sense that God was saying, go home and I'll make provision. And I'd think about renewing my lease and I'd get nauseous, like physically nauseous. And I thought, this is super weird. What is going on here? So I went with go home and trust me. And I have literally had housing since August 27th. And I wrote the words linked with precision. It's not just housing here or there, this little space and this homestay or this homestead or whatever. It's like the day something ends, I'll get a call, and then that day something will begin. And it's been like that, and I have housing through April, and actually probably beyond that. And that is provision. I mean, that's the hand of God. That doesn't happen, just by happenstance. And so that's been another place of his provision. So he's been a comfort. He's been the deepest love. He's been the most faithful provider. And the last quote I wanted to leave you with that's been really a book that has been so important in my journey right now is The Believer's Secret of Waiting on God, Andrew Murray in the 1800s. I mean, this is like it could have been written today. I just love the timeliness of when God speaks through people. But it says, it is God who is the valid reason for your expecting great things. Oh, do learn the lesson, Marissa. You are not going to wait on yourself to see what you feel and what changes come to you. You are going to wait on God to know first what he is, and then after that, what he will do. Wow. And that speaks so deeply to me of all the things that I have shared, and really is genuine freedom. And so I'm super grateful.
Morning, y'all. Why was I coming? My bad, okay. Like I said, you can pry that word up my cold dead hands. I would say y'all until I die. It's convenient. You can't take that from me. So, but I really love this church. As I sit and I process this Sunday morning, as I process conversations I've had with Jeff and conversations I've had with you guys, the more I sit on it, I'm like, this is the church being the church. We've had people today talk about hard seasons and struggles and being able to openly do that because the tone of this place is knowing that going through hard times, going through struggles doesn't negate God's power and goodness, nor does it negate one's faith. Yeah. And so just seeing that this really is a place that mourns and weeps with those who are mourning and weeping, and laughs and celebrates with those who are in that type of season. And so for me, I'm like, that's extremely healthy, one, but it's extremely biblical on the second hand, right? And so there's two kind of scripture things that I really think of when I think of New Day. And the first is this really intense community you see in the book of Acts, the first church. I see that here. I see that in New Day. The way that you guys just stay and hang out 30 minutes after the service talking with each other. You'll hang out with each other on the weekends. You know, like Jackson's pointing fingers at his mom. Like, yeah, my mom stays here for 30 minutes after.
So unlikely.
Tiffany, you're a great conversationalist. Everybody loves it. So, you know, and so I see that in this church. And then I think of the Psalms. And so in the English Bible, there are 150 Psalms. 65 of those are songs of lament, right? And these are the literal prayers and songs of Christians passed throughout the generations, right? And so that tells us as Christians, we don't have to shy away from the hard and uncomfortable things. You know, like we can voice our pain and our struggles and have our community sit in the trenches with us and journey with us through those. And New Day models that so stinking well. And so for me, I hate to be cheesy. I really try not to be cheesy, but that's really what I'm thankful for. You know, like I'm blown away. I'm like, I get to be here. You know, I get to be a part of this community. I get to have a boss that's loving and compassionate and thoughtful and wise and tenderhearted. Like I could just, like, I get to have Jeff and Karen as my boss and mentor and friend. Like that blows my mind, you know? And so, you know, like every day I'm like, I get to be here. Like I get to pastor. It's not something I take lightly, and it can for real. Like I was thinking about it this morning and getting emotional about it. And I was just like, it's special. And so when Jeff originally asked me to do this, he gave me a good 2-3 weeks notice. You know, he's a good man, good guy. You know, he gave me a notice. But staff meeting rolled around this Wednesday, and I still really had no idea what I was going to say. And so Thursday night, I was driving home from Thanksgiving, and it hit me. I had like this epiphany. I was like, Paige, why don't you talk about what you're thankful for on a holiday that's literally called Thanksgiving? I was like, you're brilliant. This is, you know, like you're a genius. Like this, nobody's thought of this before. You're really got a long way, you know. And so, but for real, as I reflect, it really is unreal to me how much I have to be thankful for this season. You know, it's been hectic and stressful at times. But it's been so good, and it's been so fun, and it's been so life-giving. You know, like the love and generosity and hospitality that's been showered upon me. You know, I think about the gift cards I've received. I think about the dinners I've been invited to, the coffee dates I've been invited to, the people constantly checking up on me, the amount of Thanksgivings I was invited to. And this was my first Thanksgiving away from my family, and I had a great time. Like, I had a blast, you know, the food was great, I laughed until I cried. It was great. And I could ramble on about how great you guys are, but I really am just thankful to be a part of New Day. And you know, that's not me saying that we're perfect, we've got everything figured out, but as an outsider coming in, I can tell you guys it's really special what's going on here, and it's really good. And so, yeah, that's where I have been this Thanksgiving, really just blown away by the generosity and the goodness of God that I have seen and felt through you guys. And so, yeah, now that I've spent the bulk of my time rambling about how awesome you are and how awesome Jeff is, I'm sure he's thoroughly uncomfortable and regrets asking me to do this. So I had messed with him, you know, throughout the week. I was like, bro, I'm going off script. I was like, I'm totally going off script. I was like, I'm going to have a 20-slide PowerPoint about the state of Arkansas. And now I'm sure at this point he's, I'm sure that he's wishing, I really wish he would have went with the Arkansas thing, you know? And so, but for real, guys, I'm deeply thankful, deeply humbled, just by the reception that I've had by you guys and getting to watch you guys interact and take part of that. And so, yeah, that's what I'm thankful for. So, thank you guys.
Yeah, she's not wrong about that. But I was thinking, you know, we've got her here now. She said she's thankful, so now we can finally let down. We don't have to put on this great show anymore. I think what she said about this community being able to hold both the hard things and the good things together, that is something really unique about, at least how Christ has established the church, and I think we see a lot of that expressed here at New Day. And we had a couple of people that I was really hoping could share with us this morning. One was James Yee, who's sick this week, but who had such a journey of being out of work and having God provide, and then having it happen again, and having it be a totally different experience, and so that mixture of hardship and gratitude together. But then also, I was really hoping that Jason LaFontaine could be here this morning. Thanksgiving is such a mixed bag holiday for people with native backgrounds, and so we had a really interesting conversation, and I want to get to that in just a minute and kind of still talk about what we were going to talk about. But I came across a quote this week from Henry Nouwen that I wanted to put up there. It's kind of a long quote, but I wanted to just get your guys' thoughts around it, because he kind of touches on some of these things here. So, and I don't know if you'll appreciate this quote or find it just bugs you, so we can talk about it. He says, "To be grateful for the good things that happen in our lives is easy, but to be grateful for all of our lives, the good as well as the bad, the moments of joy as well as the moments of sorrow, the successes as well as the failures, the rewards as well as the rejections, that requires hard spiritual work." That's not the end, but it keeps going. "Still, we are only truly grateful people when we can say thank you to all that has brought us to the present moment. As long as we keep dividing our lives between events and people we would like to remember and those we would rather forget, we cannot claim the fullness of our beings as a gift of God to be grateful for. Let us not be afraid to look at everything that has brought us to where we are now and trust that we will soon see it in the guiding hand of a loving God." Any thoughts as you listen to those words?
Well, for me, Jeff, I had some pretty tough stuff to go through. But after I went and processed the feelings about it, it brought me to the place of healthiness. And so whatever it took, I finally came to Christ. And it's like I always said, it doesn't matter what happened because I now have Christ.
Thank you. Anybody else have?
I think it also just shows our flawed perception. What we think is good may actually be bad.
Right.
What we think is bad may actually be good. I think
Right.
Mike wrote a lot about it, that you think that winning $1 million in the lottery is going to make your life amazing, but it can actually do the opposite. And we have a really flawed perception of good and bad, and things are a lot more complex, and seeing things through God's eyes, things may look very different than that.
Yeah, thank you. I think that is really true. Any other thoughts on?
I think of the word integration, that the way to wholeness, from I'm just thinking of my own story, has been that I've received both sides, or both things, or many things that could seem incongruent, hard, good, whatever labels you want to put on it, but the wholeness has come when I've received all of it, and been curious about the hard things and received the hard things, but also embraced the sweet things too.
Yeah, no, that is really good. I did like the way that he put that, of going, it's all part of what makes us who we are, and so being able to at least be thankful for maybe some of the the impact of some of those hard things. Were you going to say something, Claire?
I think also there's a really beautiful thing here, which is we as Americans can learn a lot from the international church in this spot.
Yeah.
Like I think of what Dylan shared, like in many ways our lives are comfortable and functional way that the rest of the world does not experience.
Yeah.
And you get into that white savior mentality that we have a lot to give.
Right.
But this is a place where we can deeply receive in a really like powerful and meaningful way that I have personally found just very transformative in my own life.
Yeah, no, that is a good word.
This is a beautiful place of connection into the international community.
Yeah. Zoe, what did you say?
Go.
I like the part of the quote that I think you were referencing where it says just something about, that whole picture and that gratitude for that whole picture for both sides. Like it allows, that's when we're able to connect to the fullness of our humanity, right? And I think that's the part that I really connected with, because I think there are some things in our lives that are not good.
Yeah.
And that God
Right.
says are not good.
Right.
Right? And it doesn't mean that like we should be thankful for, like I don't know, I struggle with like I should be thankful for trauma.
Right. Right.
Like but I do agree that I think, I'm grateful for the journey of of finding God and being thankful for God's hand through my whole life, and knowing like that the good and the bad, those did not tear apart God's work in my life, right? And
Yeah.
the fullness of my humanity and the fullness of who God is in my life, that is seen through it all. Right?
Yes, that is really well said. Thank you, Zoe. Were you going to say something too?
That's actually very similar to what I was going to say. I was going to say one of my favorite quotes from Karen is always that only God can mop up a mess and wring out something beautiful. And it reminds me of that. Like, it's not that terrible, horrible things are good things. Like,
Right.
we're not bypassing the hardness.
Yeah.
We're just giving thanks, knowing that we have a good God who is somehow going to work this thing that is really awful sometimes into a beautiful tapestry. That what looks bad and what is bad in some ways is going to be a part of a good, better, big story.
Yeah.
And even if we don't get to see that better, it's with us.
Yes. Yeah, that's the faith that Paige was talking about, that is there even in the midst of it.
And the thing that gives us confidence in that is the crucifixion followed by resurrection.
Yes.
God did that.
Right.
What
Right.
else is he able and willing to do?
Yes.
I have a friend who's maybe 10 years younger than I am, which still makes her quite a senior. And she has gone through so many difficult things alone. She lives alone. And so I've learned that when something difficult for me comes up, Linda pops into my head saying, I'm not going to let Satan rob me of my joy. This,
Yeah.
And so that helps.
Yeah.
Helps a lot.
Thank you. Yeah, Nick.
I don't speak as quickly as everybody else, but I think I like the quote in the sense of, in retrospect, it's really great to be thankful, but it's also important not to be fake when you're going through something hard. And to just try to throw that aside and be like, oh, I'm thankful for this hard thing, because I know that God's going to take, we can sit in the hard moments. And I think it's really healthy later on, if you're in a really healthy place, to really see everything that's happened in your life that has brought you to where you are. But let's not mistake thinking it's okay to be in a hard place.
Yes.
Sometimes you need to be in a hard
Yes.
place. And that doesn't mean you need to be thankful while you're in a hard place.
Right. No, I think that is a really good one. And I think that was what I was saying. There's something about this quote that is provocative, and you go, well, yeah, I think that's a good way to think about it. In retrospect, you can look back and sometimes see that hand of God in it. But it's okay. Like, it's not negating the reality of the hard time. I like what Zoe said about the connectedness to our humanity. I think that's a good way to think about it. When I was talking with Jason, as I said, obviously for Native Americans, Thanksgiving, it's just such a different, horrible reminder sometimes of all the pain and everything. And so he was talking about, he for those of you who don't know Jason, he is the director of Indian education for Native American education for the Tacoma School District, right? Is it Tacoma School District?
It's actually the ESD, so he has 5 districts.
5 districts, okay.
It's the largest district.
Yes. Tiffany may be correcting my details here as I'm going through here this morning. I invited that. I asked her to be my backup here today. So, but so he decided with some of his students that he wanted to teach them how to make fry bread, which is sort of it's a piece of Native American culture across tribal boundaries, and it's this sort of flat bread that everybody knows about that is Native American. And so they decided, and I don't think he had even made it before, had he himself personally, so this was an experiment for him as well. But he set about having his students learn the process of putting it together, and it looks like they had pretty good results. But he wasn't just teaching them the process of how to make this bread. Really, he was teaching them also the history of it, because even though it's so identified with Native American culture, it's really got this conflicted story behind it, because it started with the Navajo tribes as they made their long walk and were moved from their homelands in Arizona. They had to walk 300 miles to New Mexico and were put in this internment camp where they couldn't farm, they couldn't hunt, they couldn't get their own food, and the government provided them flour and salt and baking powder and water. And that was all the ingredients they had to work with. And so they came up with this fry bread. And so it's a story of this bread that represents a lot of grief and a lot of resilience and resourcefulness, and but also just sadness is associated with it. And we were talking, and he and Daniel Turner and I have been going through the book of Mark in the First Nations edition of the New Testament, and we were talking, and he was sharing this story with me, and then afterwards I looked up in the that's the long walk there, but I looked up the passage that I normally read for communion to see how they translated it in the First Nations Bible, and I saw that they had it, that Jesus took some fry bread, and so I was all excited to see that, and I talked to Jason about it, and he's like, well, I'm not sure actually how I feel about that. If it feels like they just sort of grab the easy thing without the history and stuff. But the more we were talking about it too, the more I thought, no, actually, this is the story of our communion. There's a conflicted story in the bread of communion. this happened at Passover, the first communion, and if you look in the book of Deuteronomy, as how God commanded the Israelites to celebrate the Passover, he said this. He said, "Do not eat it with bread made with yeast, but for 7 days eat unleavened bread, the bread of affliction, because you left Egypt in haste, so that all the days of your life you may remember the time of your departure from Egypt." And I thought about that being called the bread of affliction. I thought of when Jesus took that bread and said, "This is my body." He's saying, "I'm the bread of affliction." And then it said that he gave thanks for it, you know. And so here you have this deeply embedded story of Christ taking up our sorrow and our affliction and weaving it into a prayer of thanks. And so as we come to communion this morning, it doesn't have to be that we're in this happy place where we're feeling just, you know, like the good that we're thankful for has to be all good, or it can't. Or if there's any bad going on, that it cancels out our ability to celebrate the good. But to go, you know what? Both sit side by side with us, because that's the fullness of humanity right there. It's all of that together. So I loved what I just loved being able to learn that added piece from Jason about that bread, because it just expanded my picture of what Christ had done for us. So